I wouldn't know what to do. My son get a murder charge, bro. Like, I gotta stop him from crashing
Boosie's
out,
son,
bro.
Tootie
Like,
is reportedly on a mission to take out Kodak Black for disrespecting his father. He's recently been exposed for an alleged attempt that has the entire hip-hop community on high alert and law enforcement monitoring his every move. Beyond the tough talk on Instagram, the reality is that Tootie was caught operating with switches, sawed-off shotguns, machine guns, and silencers, activities that have led to serious federal charges and death threats against multiple artists. On top of the weapons charges, he's facing counts of willful obstruction of law enforcement, which could result in decades behind bars. The truth behind how this beef reached a boiling point is far more complex and dangerous than people realize. We're breaking down the entire situation, including the specific messages where Tootie claimed he couldn't wait to catch a rapper and open fire. We'll also look into how he's been allegedly stalking Lil Crick since 2023 to follow through on these threats. What's up, everyone? Today we're diving deep into some heavy street drama that's shaking up the industry, a situation that could easily end in a life sentence or a casket. This is no longer just a rap beef, we're in federal territory now, with life-altering consequences. Before we get into the details, let's keep it 100. Social media has been buzzing about Boosie's son, Tootie, seemingly going into full crash-out mode after Kodak Black dropped that diss track. But we're here to separate the facts from the fiction because this situation has layers that most people aren't even aware of. It all really started brewing back in 2023, though the roots of this tension go back even further. It began when Kodak Black was offered $1 million to collaborate on a song with Tekashi 6ix9ine. Like anyone looking to secure a bag, Kodak accepted the offer. However, that single decision triggered a domino effect that is still unfolding today, leading to death threats, federal charges, and a young man seemingly ready to throw his entire life away. Now, don't mistake this for just another rap beef that's going to fizzle out in a few weeks. We are talking about a young man facing serious federal weapons, charges including possession of sawed-off shotguns, machine guns, and silencers, who is now making direct threats against established artists while out on bond. This is the kind of situation that usually ends in either a life sentence or an obituary. But here's where things get even more intense. Back in 2023, when Kodak took that $1 million deal with 6ix9ine, it sent shockwaves through the industry. For those who need a refresher, 6ix9ine is arguably the most hated figure in hip-hop right now, after he famously snitched on his entire Treyway crew to secure an early release from prison. We're talking about a guy who cooperated with the authorities against everyone he could to save himself. When Kodak accepted that deal, it sent shockwaves through the street rap community. But the reality is, 6ix9ine was playing chess, not checkers. He was using established artists to regain legitimacy and prove that even real street rappers would work with him if the price was right. Kodak eventually went on Drink Champs and made a statement that left everyone stunned. He basically said, $1 million is $1 million. I don't even know the people he snitched on, and I'm not from that area. That's your rat, not mine.
I mean, fucking all bro to do a song with a nigga who, like, I don't even know the niggas he told on.
Went in on
and I ain't even from over there. Niggas some shit like, nigga, that's y'all rap. I know only nigga squeeze this nigga out some cheese, homie. Yeah. I know some shit like, bro, y'all ain't finna do nothing. Y'all ain't even squeeze a nigga out some
Let's
winning.
keep it real. That statement proved that morals, street codes, and principles all have a price tag if the offer is high enough. But this wasn't just about one song or a single paycheck. This was about the fundamental question of whether street rappers can actually separate their business interests from their street credibility. Kodak basically argued that street politics don't apply to him when there's money to be made, a perspective that completely divided the hip-hop community from a strictly business standpoint. Kodak wasn't entirely wrong. The music industry has always prioritized profit over street politics. However, when your entire brand is built on authenticity and keeping it real, taking money from the most notorious informant in hip-hop history looks like the ultimate sellout move. In both the streets and hip-hop culture, snitching is viewed as the ultimate violation. Once you cross that line, there's no coming back, no redemption, and no second chances. Boosie's perspective was different because he's always been the one to stand up and speak out against violations of the street code, even when it costs him money or personal relationships. When the news broke, Boosie actually called Kodak's brother directly to ask if the collaboration with 6ix9ine was real. Once it was confirmed, Boosie admitted it hurt him personally and that he felt he had to block Kodak entirely. That's a deep level of disappointment, losing all respect for someone you once considered solid. Boosie described it as a detrimental move, noting that 6ix9ine is the most hated person in the prison system across the board. In Boosie's eyes, Kodak made his choice, and now he has to stand on it.
thought it was a lie. When I first saw it on Instagram, I got up, tried to call Kodak, but he must have had a new number. I called his brother, and I asked him, did Kodak do a song with 6ix9ine? He said, yeah, bro. Think so. It me up, it hurt me. He asked me, did I want to talk to Kodak? I told him I ain't want to talk to Kodak, or block Kodak. That was a detrimental move to him, bro. 6ix9ine is the most hated person in prison. By every race, what Kodak did.
And honestly, Boosie wasn't wrong about the cultural impact. Kodak's decision essentially gave other artists the green light to work with 6ix9ine, which weakened the long-standing anti-sieging stance in hip-hop. But this is where it gets complicated. On one side, you have the traditional street code. You don't do business with informants. Period. No exceptions. No excuses. And no amount of money makes it okay. On the other side, you have the reality that snitching is becoming increasingly tolerated in the rap industry as artists begin to prioritize profit over principles. The real kicker is that Kodak's choice sparked a massive debate over whether the street code is simply outdated in today's music business. While some people respected his honesty about chasing the bag, others saw it as a total betrayal of everything hip-hop stands for. This divide laid the foundation for the chaos we're seeing now. Fast forward to 2024, and Kodak Black is on a completely different energy. The word on the street is that he's been struggling heavily with drugs. We're talking about serious substance abuse that is clearly affecting his decision-making and impulse control. When you mix hard drugs with ego and unresolved beef, you get crash-out behavior that can destroy everything you've worked to build. That is exactly what happened when Kodak dropped that diss track aimed at Boosie. The timing was incredibly suspect. He waited until the day before Boosie had to appear in court to release it, clearly trying to add extra stress and distraction to an already difficult situation. In the song, Kodak went straight for the throat with personal attacks that crossed several lines. He claimed Boosie was only bitter because he couldn't sign him back in the day, basically implying that Boosie was jealous he made it big without his help or a cosign. Kodak even called him out for not moving like a real OG, which is a direct shot at Boosie's street credibility and his standing in the culture. He essentially labeled Boosie as washed up and irrelevant, claiming he only gets attention when he mentions bigger names like Kodak or NBA Youngboy. I won't lie. The track was musically smooth, but the content was strictly designed to hurt Boosie both personally and professionally. Kodak knew exactly which buttons to push to get under his skin, and he hit every single one of them at the worst possible time. Boosie wasn't about to let that disrespect slide though. He jumped on Twitter and went completely off, posting a series of tweets that made it clear just how hurt and angry he was about the entire situation. The first tweet set the tone immediately. "You waiting until the day before I go to court to drop a weak-ass diss song. Lol. You a clout-chasing You know what I got going on and you do this the day before court. You're a real clown." Right off the bat, Boosie went for the jugular by calling Kodak a crackhead, one of the most disrespectful labels you can give someone in hip-hop, but Boosie was just getting started. He kept the pressure on, tweeting, "When's the last time you heard somebody say, 'Put on that new Kodak'? You're done, bro. Your career is over, your music is trash, and your looks are even worse. The only time you're relevant is when you mention me or YB." Those are some deeply personal attacks, targeting everything from his physical appearance and music quality to his overall relevance in the culture. The most savage part, though, was when Boosie said, "I know, you're going to be holding the phone like Pookie from New Jack City, waiting on some bad news. You're going to be up all night smoking that glass, wishing bad on me. Just let that sink in." Boosie basically painted a picture of Kodak as a desperate addict sitting by the phone, praying for a negative outcome in Boosie's court case. Then, Boosie hit him with the ultimate street diss. "One thing won't happen though, I won't be checking PC like you did." For those who don't know, PC stands for protective custody. Boosie was essentially claiming that, unlike Kodak, he doesn't need special protection behind bars and can hold his own in general population. That's questioning someone's gangster on the highest possible level. The hashtag he used at the end, #CCC, said it all. Clout-chasing crackhead Boosie created an entire acronym just to disrespect Kodak, which really shows the depth of his anger and disappointment. Now, we have to address the elephant in the room, Boosie's son. Tootie Raw. This is the same young man who was arrested on federal weapons charges that read like a GTA inventory: possession of a sawed-off shotgun, a sawed-off rifle, a machine gun, a dangerous weapon, and a silencer, along with willful obstruction of law enforcement. We're talking about federal charges that could put him away for decades, not just a few years. These aren't state-level charges that can be easily plea bargained down to probation. Federal weapons charges, especially those involving machine guns and silencers, carry mandatory minimum sentences that judges often can't reduce even if they wanted to. But instead of laying low, hiring top-tier lawyers, and fighting his case quietly, Tootie decided to dive headfirst into his father's beef. This is the definition of crash-out behavior, making your legal situation significantly worse by drawing unnecessary attention to yourself. Tootie took to Instagram posting, "I'm in the streets with this for real. Go ask your big dog about Lil Raw. I'll put that belt to you. I don't need pictures with this stuff." and I'm ready to go to war. Who's against me? We're on you. That is a direct threat of violence made while he is currently out on a federal bond. The phrase, put that belt down, is street slang for putting someone in a casket. When he says, I ain't got no pics with this stuff, he's claiming he doesn't post his arsenal on social media to avoid leaving evidence. And we on y'all is a flat-out warning that he's coming for anyone who has an issue with him or his family. But here's the wild part. Tootie has been trying to build his street cred for years. For a long time, people in the comments were laughing at him, calling him soft and labeling him as Boosie's privileged son who never had to struggle. That kind of disrespect can really get to someone who is desperate to prove they are actually about that life. The situation got even more intense when Lil Crix entered the mix. Crix is closely tied to Kodak's circle down in Florida. When he started mocking Tootie's threats and reposting them online, things took a dangerous turn. What most people don't realize, however, is that Tootie has been targeting Lil Crix since 2023. This has been a year-long campaign of harassment and threats, proving this isn't just about defending his father. It's about a young man looking for any excuse to prove himself through violence. Lil Crix even posted screenshots showing that Tootie had been in his DMs for months, sending message after message trying to spark a confrontation. Crix was essentially ignoring him, because he didn't take him seriously, which only made Tootie more desperate and dangerous. He began sending direct messages to Lil Crix that were blatant death threats. One message read, "You a hoe. You ain't like that boy. Don't get this confused, see what happens. Come to the A and play, and see what happens? On my soul. You ain't making it back." Another message was even more explicit. "I ain't going to look for you, but if you pull up, we're going to show 100%. You ain't making it back. You're a deer rider, and Kodak doesn't even care. You're signed and still broke. I never signed a deal, and I'm richer than you. Bum." But the most chilling message was this one. "I'm ready to make an example out of a rap guy. I've been waiting on the edge so long to face one of you and go viral. Every day of my life, I'm ready to shoot the out of anybody who tries to play with me. You be the first one and see if I'm playing." That last message reveals everything you need to know about Tootie's mindset. He doesn't just want to hurt someone, he wants to go viral for it. He wants the internet to see him as a legitimate threat, not just Boosie's son. That is the most dangerous kind of person, someone who views violence as a shortcut to fame and respect. In all honesty, that message shows a young man who is ready to throw his entire life away for internet clout and street credibility. He isn't talking about self-defense or protecting his family. He's talking about targeting a rapper just to prove a point. To understand why Tootie is moving so recklessly, you have to realize the unique pressure that comes with being the child of a hip-hop legend. People automatically assume you're soft because you grew up with money and didn't have to struggle, the way your parents did. Tootie has dealt with this his entire life. When people look at him, they see Boosie's son someone who lived in nice homes, attended good schools, and had opportunities most kids in the hood never get. They don't see a street dude who earned his stripes. They see a suburban kid trying to play gangster. The streets have been talking, and many people don't take Tootie seriously because they think his father's fame protected him from the real world. His comment sections are constantly filled with people calling him fake, soft, and privileged. That level of persistent disrespect can drive someone to do something extreme just to prove them wrong. But what makes Tootie's situation even more complicated is that Boosie actually exposed him to that lifestyle from a very young age. Tootie was reportedly on the block as a toddler, watching his father handle business and move weight. Because of that, he isn't as removed from the street life as other celebrity kids might be.
Put them foes up, Tootie. Where you from? Put them up. This Tootie badass. Tell the camera where you from. Cross the what?
The problem is that Tootie wants to live up to his father's reputation without realizing the hell Boosie went through to build it. Boosie did real time in prison, lost close friends to the streets, and made genuine sacrifices to get where he is today.
Now that you get older, you be like, bruh, like, how the f you 40 years old still gotta look over your shoulder, you know, from your past. That's a f***ed up feeling. When you gotta go especially when you go in your city, you gotta look everywhere over your shoulder. Like, that shit wasn't worth it. The respect you got for anything you did ain't worth you being a older man looking over your mother.
Tootie wants the respect without paying the price, but that's just not how the streets work. On top of that, Boosie has always tried to be protective of his children, attempting to keep them away from the very lifestyle that nearly destroyed him. However, Tootie seems to view that protection as a sign that his father doesn't believe in him or doesn't think he's tough enough. This creates a deep resentment that drives him to try and prove himself even more aggressively. Let's look at the reality of Tootie's situation from a legal perspective. He is already facing federal weapons charges that could result in a minimum of 10 to 20 years behind bars. By making public death threats, he is giving prosecutors exactly what they need to argue in court, that he is a danger to society who deserves the maximum sentence. Every Instagram post, every DM, and every thread is evidence that federal authorities are documenting right now. They are building a case to prove that Tootie is exactly the kind of person. These gun laws were meant for someone who uses illegal weapons to intimidate and threaten others.
I wouldn't know what to do. My son get a murder charge, bro. Like, I gotta stop him from crashing out, bro. Like, then it worried me more. All them little around him clutching, all them little clutching, man. You know, easy for something to happen, bro. Like, should be having me worried as a daddy, bro.
For those who haven't been keeping up with federal gun laws, possession of a sawed-off weapon or a silencer is a massive deal that carries mandatory minimum sentences. When you add a machine gun charge to the mix, we're talking about potential decades in prison. Making death threats while out on bond is essentially an invitation for the authorities to revoke his freedom and pile on more charges. This beef between Kodak and Boosie on especially. Tootie jumping in with death threats highlights a much larger problem in hip-hop culture. We've created an environment where young men feel pressured to prove their authenticity through violence and criminal activity, rather than talent and hard work. The streets are watching this unfold, and it's sending a dangerous message to the youth who look up to these figures. When the children of celebrities are making death threats and talking about catching bodies just for internet clout, what kind of example does that set for kids who don't have those same advantages? Keeping it real, there's nothing cool about throwing your life away for street credibility. Tootie has the platform and the resources to build something positive, create jobs, and give back to his community. Instead, he's choosing to chase the same demons that nearly destroyed his father, demons that could very well end up destroying him, too. Ultimately, Tootie's situation isn't just about proving his toughness or defending his father's honor. It's about a young man who has been given every advantage in life, yet is choosing the most dangerous path possible due to cultural pressure, personal insecurity, and a desperate need for validation. What started as a debate over principles, whether it's acceptable to do business with informants and what that means for hip-hop, has evolved into something far more volatile. We now have a young man making death threats and talking about going viral for violence. This situation has grown beyond a single family's drama. It's a reflection of how our culture glorifies violence, making young men feel they must prove themselves through criminal acts. Until that narrative changes, we will continue to see talented people throw their lives away for temporary respect. The real question is, will Tootie learn from his father's mistakes, or will he have to endure the system himself to realize that this lifestyle leads to a dead end? If he actually follows through on these threats, we could be looking at multiple life sentences or worse. A tragedy where someone doesn't make it home. Boosie went through hell and came out the other side trying to build something positive. It would be a tragedy to see his son head right back into that fire. But now, his son is heading down that same path, and possibly a worse one, because he's making public threats while already under the federal microscope. That isn't being gangster, it's just reckless. What are your thoughts on Tootie's current situation and his future? Do you think he's truly about that life? Or is this just a young man desperate to prove himself to people who will never respect him anyway? Should Boosie be doing more to step in and control his son's behavior? Or is Tootie old enough now that he has to face the consequences of his own choices? Most importantly, what does this situation say about how we raise young men within hip-hop culture?